Alright, Shalom. When the start of souls begin, we'll praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Kadash. Double honors the apostle of great and most and honors to brothers doing the work of the most on truth and in sincerity. Yahweh is the true name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh, and the son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba meaning in, Ha meaning the, and Shah meaning name, so Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Want to get into this quick one. This is what you call it, a track that's kind of been going viral apparently. I saw it on a brother's status, and I was like, "Right, this beat, lyrics and everything, flow, whatever, what have you." And it was going, viral because it's actually in three languages: English, Japanese, and Korean. Right, but especially this particular one here that's on the screen. Like, you listen to it, the flow was, I was like, right, okay, can't, right? And hey, it just goes back, basically, posed the statement, right? You can't tell me these ain't nigga women, right? These are just, the four of them, whatever it's four, right? You can't tell me these ain't just a bunch of fucking nigga women, man. Right, like what you said when you listen to the music or whatever was the fourth one. There we go. Yeah, when you listen to the thing, to the lyrics, the flow and whatever. This one here in the corner in the black, this is like just so much better than the other three, because that's the thing. For instance, even amongst so-called dark-skinned Jake, your shaft Jakes, you got Jakes, and then you got your super Jakes. Right, like for instance, you look at your Chris Brown. Chris Brown is a super Jake, right? Nigga, he's be spinning, 720 degrees, or 1440 degrees in one spin, right? Most Jakes just be spinning, 180 in a two-step, right? So yeah, Chris Brown, he's a super Jake, but then you get regular Jakes. This one there, flow wise, I was like, right, now that's is the kind of flow you're like, right, okay. But once again, it goes into this thing of the Israelite foreigners, right? Because Israel scattered amongst all the nations, right? Israel scattered amongst all the nations, and the history proves that. Now, when it comes to Moabites and Ammonites, right, we have history of Moabites and Ammonites even in our Lord Yahushua's lineage, right? So we start off with Ruth 4 and 9. It says, "And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witness this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Malon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth, the Moabitess, right, an actual Moabite, says, the wife of Mahlon have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, right, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place ye are witness this day," right? And when we scroll down, right, it says, verse 13, "So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife," right? And when he went in unto her, the Lord Yahweh gave her conception, and she bare a son. The woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be Yahweh, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name be famous in Israel, and he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. Right, and Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and began to nurse it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Right? So, David's grandmother? Is it grandmother or great grandmother? So Jesse's his son. Granddad. So great grandmother. Is that great? Did I do that right? Yeah, great grandmother. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, great grandmother. That's the one. So King David's great grandmother, right, is was a Moabite, right, and that's it. right? Is King David, of course, was still an Israelite because you have these individuals that try to say, basically try to put the woman's line in there, which is no such thing, right? And then you look at say Rehoboam as well, right? It says First Kings 14:21. It says, in Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Right? Rehoboam was 40 and 1 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord Yahweh did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. Right? So there you see it. Now, this is the thing. In these instances, right, the son stayed around, but you would have had instances where Jake would have, dealt with an Ammonite woman, right? And then his son also dealt with an Ammonite woman, and his grandson also dealt with an Ammonite woman, right? Especially when you consider that trade, if you was say a merchant, right, and you went to certain parts in to do to of the world to do trade, guess what you would have done? You may or may not have stayed, especially you just got someone pregnant, right? You're like, oh shit, you was feeling or whatever, what have you, right? You may have chosen to just stay around, in that area with her, right? And then over several generations, you end up with your grand, with your granddaughter, great great granddaughter, looking like one of these four hoes, right? Because ultimately, they're Jakes. The Jakes are hoes anyway. A load of our women are just straight, and especially in that entertainment industry, right? Are just hoes, right? This one reminds me of more. What's that chick, man? That light skinned chick. Let me 1 second. Ariana Grande, like the way she was singing, whatever, what have you. Obviously, not to Grande's, caliber, right? But that's just basically what would happen after a period of time, right? The daughters, your daughters, your granddaughters, your great granddaughters would have ended up looking like one of these whores here, right? So then I started, Spirit was like, look up, the different anything in history, right, between say Israel, and in what is today modern day Asia. Right now, this I came across this site, but I saw Church of Latter Day Saints. I was like, oh shit. So that's why I just jumped straight to the point, because there's a lot of bones in here, right? So even this, I kind of was reading with with a what's the word I'm looking for? With a ladle of salt, not even a pinch of salt, a ladle of salt, right? Having to cross verify everything that I was reading, right? But this is you can see I'm quite far down, right? This is Jewish merchants and Asian caravan routes, right? G.F. Hudson has shown that communication, travel, and substantial cultural and economic intercourse existed between China and the Mediterranean world from the earliest Roman times. During Han Dynasty, roughly 2 centuries before and after, they've got Christ still, we know his name. In the Hebrew, Christ would translate to Mashiach, meaning anointed, right? So the silk trade between the east and west reached its height, right, which brought foreign merchants and traders, as well as soldiers and hostages, to mingle with the sons of Han, right? It's from the Han Dynasty, right? It says men risked their lives by land and sea to carry the precious materials to Rome, materials that were at the time to be procured only in China. There is evidence that Israelite colonies had already settled in Central Asia as much as 200 years before the writing of Isaiah 49 and 12, which tells the presence of Israelites in China, the land of Sinim, and everything. So then I kind of looked up this Silk Road, right, and kind of went into there, and you can kind of see on the map how it kind of just goes all the way through that. So once again, trading, what, let's say Jake, Israelite, right, was in Israel, right, and then traveled to China. What's to say he never stopped there, right? Once again, after you've made a long ass journey, right, what would you have done? Right, you would have been like, look, man, you don't want to bust a nut or whatever have you, right? Like you got taken by one of them, not taken, but you fell for one of them, more badass chicks, right? You laid with her, it was good, right? Gave that warmth, and then guess what? You stayed, right? But now let's imagine you've just had children in this part of the world, right? You could bring them back, but as we've read, that was a dangerous route. Or I don't know if this was in here, right? Or maybe not a previous article, but obviously you're trading, you're out in the sticks, you're out in the elements, right? So you may have just decided to stay there. So then I ask the question, right? You're a J, you stay there, you have your utes, right? Then your son marries the women that are around him, which guess what? If you're surrounded by heathens, guess what? You gonna marry your son is gonna get with a heathen, right? And then so on and so forth and so forth and so forth until once again your great 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 granddaughter looks like one of these hoes, right? So says the Silk Road. Says the Silk Road was a network of ancient trade routes formerly established during the Han Dynasty of China in 130 BCE, right? This is which linked the regions of the ancient world in commerce between 130 BCE 1453. The Silk Road was not a single route from the east to west, and so historians favor the name Silk routes, right? It says though Silk Road is commonly used, the European explorer Marco Polo traveled on these routes and described them in depth in his famous work, but he is not credited with naming them. Both terms for this network, Silk Road and Silk routes, were coined by the German geographer and traveler Ferdinand von Richthofen in 1877 CE, right? So AD, we say AD, right? It says who designated them Seidenstrasse, right? Silk Road, or Seidenstrassen, right? Silk routes, right? Polo and later von Richthofen make mention of the goods which were transported back and forth from the Silk Road, right? So from the west to east, these goods included horses, saddles, and riding tack, the grapevine and grape, dogs and other animals, both exotic and domestic, animal furs and skin, honey, fruits, glassware, woolen blankets, rugs, carpets, textiles, gold and silver, camels, slaves, weapons, and armor. It says from the east to the west, so coming from China eastwards, right? It says silk, tea, dyes, precious stones, china, right? So plates, bowl, cups and vases, porcelain, spices, right? Such as cinnamon, and that caught my attention because even when you double click, there's an aromatic spice made from the peeled, dried, and rolled bark of a Southeast Asian tree, right? Bronze and gold artifacts, medicines, perfumes, ivory, paper, gunpowder, right? So this caught my attention because obviously the scriptures, speak about cinnamon, right? Quite a bit, right? So that means even so it says south because you've got when I was looking into it here, right, you see this cinnamon has been known from remote antiquity. It was imported to Egypt as early as 2000 BC. But those who report that it had come from China had confused it with Cinnamomum cassia, right, a related species, right? So Cinnamonium cassia is basically okay, let's try to do a translation, but basically it's what here it says it here actually, right, is native to China, so it's basically Chinese cinnamon, right? So you've got both variants. You've got Chinese cinnamon, and then you've got cinnamon, right? So once again, if let's say you're Jake, you've gone down there, you're a merchant, you've gone down, you've done trade or whatever down in these bits, might, you may or may not come back, right? Because what the Lord has basically made it such that Israel is scattered throughout the whole earth, right? Jake, sees the heathen women and are like, yo, these are some beautiful ass chicks, man. And me personally, I like them slanty eyed chicks, man. Right? But yeah, continuing on, right? So this is going into that. So hey, there was movement between the peoples, right? And once again, we know Jake. Whenever Jake is around heathen women, Jake end up popping them. For instance, that's why you've got the controversy spoken of in Ezra and Nehemiah, right? Where Jake just basically started like properly making these women their wives and forgetting the Hebrew customs and Hebrew ways, such that their children weren't able to speak the Hebrew language, right? And then they were those prophets were annoyed, right? Because Israel had been basically moving towards the heathens forgetting the Lord. So continuing on, I've just had a feeling of shit. Did I put the microphone on? Lord, will I did. So yeah, let's read into it. Let's read some scriptures and we'll close out. This is Isaiah 11 and 10 says, "And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious." 1 second. Salakia. So yeah, it says, "And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea." Right? Now, like I said, this clip got went viral, because, for instance, I don't know about the other three, but this one here basically raps in in English, Japanese, and Korean, right? And are they not islands? Right? Those are some of the islands that you see. And even in Japan, there is emojis, I think they're called, right? Emojis, where it's basically just nigger women, man, more nigger women. Emoji. If I think that's the word. Is that the word? Emoji. No. Maybe I miss. What do you call it? Maybe I've forgotten the name. I've completely forgotten the name for them. It was on what was this? What was this website, man? I've completely forgotten what it was called. I remember it was a Vice thing. Let me pull this up. Let me add this to the screen. Move to another group. Right. So they mean that there you see these are just when you actually watch this one, it was on Amijo. Is it Amijo? Amejo. Right, when you look into it, right, and you're watching the video, right, on Vice, right, you was literally just watching a whole bunch of nigger women, man. That's effectively what they were, right? But we continue on. This is Isaiah 66:19. It says, "And I'll set a son among them, and I'll send those that escape of them unto the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off." Once again, isles, when you look into that, goes into islands and all of that sort of stuff. It says, "That have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles." Baruch 4:36. "So Jerusalem, look about thee toward the east, right, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from the Most High," right? Because this salvation is going to be east to west, right? So, "Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sentest away, they come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of the Most High." Baruch 5:5 says, "Arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east, and behold thy children gathered from the west unto the east by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of the Most High." So once again, the Lord isn't just coming to save in one part of the world only, right? The Lord is coming to to save Israel the elect, wherever they are scattered. Right? And the last one is Matthew 24:31. It says, "And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." Right? So north, south, east, and west. Right? The Lord is going to do his thing. So as always, Lord's, what I was edifying. Till next time we say, Shalom.